My name is Sean, and this is my story of how I went from working a full-time job to becoming a millionaire and financially free by the time I was 30 years old. And guys, I'm no different than many of you. I'm not special or particularly privileged. I just did things a little bit differently from the norm. And if I could do it, so can you. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing my journey to show you what I did to get to where I am today. And I hope it helps you guys with your own journeys so that you don't waste time and end up making the same mistakes that I did so that you can achieve financial freedom that much faster. I was born and raised in the Bay Area. My parents split up when I was just 4 years old, and because of that, I was kind of known as the black sheep of the family, where they didn't expect much from me. And I had a lot of friends growing up who were drinking alcohol and doing drugs. And in middle school, it was common for all of the boys to be carrying knives in their pockets every day. It was insane. And common sense told me that joining them would lead to a life of misery. And I didn't really want to go down that path. I wanted to be successful. At the time, success to me meant that I would get good grades, go to a good school, and eventually get a good job. And I would eventually be an engineer, just like my uncle. So I thought this was the way to go. And because I wanted to succeed and prove other people wrong, I studied really hard. And I ended up going to a good school. And I ended up getting into UCLA and earning a degree in electrical engineering. And fun fact, when I was in college, I actually got into a military program that would make me an officer and put me on one of their nuclear programs after I graduated. And the cool thing about that particular program was it actually paid me money once you got in. So I didn't have to actually go to work to get paid. I was getting around $4,000 after taxes every single month, which covered my tuition, my books, my living expenses, and the best thing was it wasn't a grant, it was actual cash, so I could spend it on whatever I wanted to. So this was my first taste of passive income. I wasn't really working, I was just going to school and getting good grades. And I thought to myself, I really want more of this. Unfortunately, during that time, I was also part of a fraternity, and we had a culture of hazing. Eventually we did get caught, and as the vice president, I got kicked out of school for 1 year. And to me, this was one of my biggest and most shameful events of my life because I had worked so hard to get into UCLA, and here I was, a normally good kid, getting kicked out of school for a year. And of course, that cascaded into getting my military contract canceled as well because they saw that I was suspended for hazing, which is something that the military does not tolerate. And despite everything happening, I realized that I couldn't just sit around and do nothing during that year. So I hustled. I learned how to code. I started making Android apps for a small developer, and it eventually led to me getting an internship at Boeing. Now, Boeing is a large defense contracting company, and they were actually impressed that I was writing code for an app that I worked with their GPS satellites, which Boeing actually made. So I got a job at Boeing, even though I was suspended for a year working full-time as an intern. My first few weeks at Boeing were amazing. I had a great time going into the labs, going into the high bays, checking out all these cool satellites, and thinking, wow, these things that I'm working on are actually going into space. Over time, as I started getting closer with my coworkers, some of whom were 30 years older than me, they would start complaining about how the company would be shafting them, not giving them the raises they deserved, not giving them extra bonuses, or worse, laying them off at a moment's notice. So I thought to myself, even though this job is really cool, I don't think I could be here forever. And I don't think I could just rely on one company to support me financially. So I couldn't imagine myself going down that path. And I told myself that I needed a way to get out of this. And so I started creating different businesses. So we started by creating a small startup company with my friends. We were trying to create a Craigslist competitor where you can buy and sell goods offline. And then I tried creating my own Amazon FBA business where I tried to sell products on Amazon. Unfortunately, both of those didn't really go anywhere. But then I started learning about real estate investing. Now, real estate investing to me was really cool because it just made sense intuitively. You could buy a property and the rent from the property could cover the mortgage, the insurance, the property taxes, other expenses, and still give you some extra cash flow. So really, you only need a couple of these to give you a few thousand in cash flow every single month. And that's all I needed to survive. So I decided, okay, let's get into real estate. Now, of course, I knew that buying real estate wasn't an easy journey. You usually need at least $20,000 to $30,000 as a down payment just to buy the property in the first place. So I got really good at budgeting, saving, and investing regularly into the stock market. And this cascaded exponentially because I got more encouragement as I saw my portfolio increase. And I was also very lucky because when I got into the stock market, stocks were starting to recover and starting to come back from the great financial crisis of 2008. Eventually, my portfolio grew so large that I was able to take the gains from my stocks to start buying rental properties. And the very first property that I bought was actually my childhood home. My mom was retiring and she wanted to leave the country and live somewhere cheaper. I told her, Mom, do not sell the home to some random stranger. This is my childhood home and I'd like to keep it if possible. So I was able to buy from her, and of course, naturally, she did give me a small family discount. I was able to get a mortgage to buy the property, and the proceeds from the sale funded her retirement. And originally, I planned on keeping this property as a rental while I continued working in Los Angeles. Luckily, the company that I happened to be working for at the time needed somebody to go back in the Bay Area, and everyone above me said, nope, nope, nope. till it came to me and I said, sure, I'll move for the job. So I moved back to my old house before it got rented out. But I found that living in a house by myself was actually pretty lonely because all my friends were still back in Los Angeles. So I started recruiting some of my friends to live with me and I said, hey, do you want to live with me here? I'll let you stay in one of my rooms for a really cheap rent. So this way I would have a buddy that would live with me and they would be able to stay at my house for a really good price. Over time, I eventually rented out all the rooms in the house with different people. And the cool thing was that even though their individual rents weren't that much, combined, it actually covered the entire mortgage of the property. Now this cool technique of renting out the extra rooms in your house is now called house hacking. Of course, their rents did increase slowly over time. So instead of just covering the mortgage, it also covered the property taxes. And then we always split the utilities 4 ways. So eventually I had zero cost of living to live in this amazing property and it was a beautiful thing. But during that time, I also had the dream of buying more and more real estate. So when I moved back to the Bay Area, I started attending a lot of real estate meetups and I started to learn more about real estate investing. After a year, I ended up buying my first rental property with 20% down. And since that time, the market has increased tremendously. I bought my first rental property for under $80,000 with a loan, and now the property is now worth over $250,000. So if you do the math, the value of the property has increased by 3 times since I bought it. And because I bought it with just 20% down, my return on that property is over 15 times because of leverage. And that's not including any of the cash flow that I've been getting from it all this time. Again, this is the power of buying properties with leverage. Now, over the next few years, my net worth would dramatically increase because I would continue buying more properties with leverage, which then multiplied the gains from the appreciation. One flip even made me $300,000, which was insane because that was over 3 times what I was making at my full-time job. So once I saw that, I made a plan to leave my full-time job as an engineer to get into real estate investing full-time. Now, just as I thought that my life would be amazing and full of jet planes and Lamborghinis, disaster struck and my net worth took a huge hit. And this was because of my own greed and my own stupidity. Because I made so much money on my first flip in 2017, I thought that I was God's gift to the world of flipping. I thought I knew that everything since all these other investors passed on that deal and didn't see the opportunity where I saw it. And unfortunately, this ended up giving me a very big head and I tried doing 4 flips at one time. Now, one of them ended up turning out pretty well, but then the market shifted on us and the other 3 became big failures that ended up losing me a lot of money. Luckily, I had enough savings at the time so that I could survive and I wouldn't go bankrupt. I was able to pay off all of my lenders and all that stuff, but it was a huge ego hit. And for a while, I was making these large payments for these properties. I was trying to hold on to them to see if the market would return so that I could make a profit. And by this time, I'd already quit my job as an engineer and I was no longer receiving a consistent source of income anymore. I was scared that I would run out of money. And with all these issues happening with my flips, my mindset wasn't right to try and go out and do more and bigger deals. I just wanted to stay safe and finish what I had here. Now, fortunately, during this time, I had already started putting out content and I was hosting local meetup groups and I was sending referrals to a local hard money lender. My friend who worked there said, hey, you're already sending us so many deals. Why don't you work with us? I think you'd be a great asset since you already know our product and you are a previous client, so you can really talk about it and it'd be great for you to join our team. For me, I thought, well, this is a commission-based role, so the more that I can sell, the more money I can make. And I decided to get into it. And it was a really cool job because it totally aligned with everything that I was doing at the time. My job was just to talk to real estate investors and give them the money to help them fund their dreams. And while that was really fun and rewarding, I think that living the life of a lender is actually very stressful because you have no breaks. You know, people always want their loans done ASAP. So it makes it hard to go on vacation and it makes it hard to have your own personal life. So after a few years of working hard and originating hundreds of millions of dollars worth of loans, I realized that I just wanted to focus on my goals and live a life that was true to myself where I could do whatever I wanted to. So I decided to continue building the brand that I started. So now we're finding great joy in creating content like this one to help others achieve financial freedom. Our tips have now reached our millions of followers on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And we thank you all so much for being part of this community. And despite the ups and downs with my loss of my flips, you know, it really was my rental properties that continued to give me passive income to help me ride out that wave. And despite my net worth dropping because of losing money on flips, it didn't actually go down to zero because my long-term holdings were continuing to appreciate in value. I became a millionaire by the time I was 30 because of my long-term real estate investments. But the real difference between me and my old coworkers was the fact that I recognized early on that I did not want to be stuck working full-time for someone else. So I did whatever it took to achieve that goal. One big thing that we always prioritized, despite the challenges of our lives, was to always have multiple income streams coming in. Our portfolio now consists of 34 units, and we're transitioning from just owning them as long-term rentals into midterm rentals and possibly short-term rentals to increase the amount of cash flow that we get from them. We own and we continue to regularly purchase stocks and ETFs, some of which continue to produce a decent amount of cash flow through their dividends. house. My wife and I now have a combined net worth of over $4 million, and most of which came from our rental properties appreciating over time. So we now live a life that's true to ourselves, where we can do whatever we want when we want it. I also no longer dread Mondays, because to me, it's just another day for us. And none of this would have happened if I didn't go on this path to prioritize financial freedom. So I hope this video has shown you that it doesn't take that much to become financially free, and that anyone can do it as long as you put your mind to it. So if you're just getting started, I recommend learning how to budget and how to save on a regular basis, and start learning how to invest in stocks. Once you have enough savings, you can then start buying long-term rental properties that will give you passive income that will appreciate over time. And while going on this path, you may encounter challenges, but with every failure, you'll learn a valuable lesson and it'll help you grow as a person. So even if you're in a bad financial place, just remember that this is all part of your story, and it'll help you build your resiliency for the next time so you can achieve that success. If you want to be successful, make a plan and never give up. So now that you heard my story of how I became financially free, you might be wondering if I'm doing something unique in my daily routine. So if so, you definitely want to check out this video right here, where I break down the secret habits that create millionaires. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.